Good. Sorry, sounds like your voice is cutting out. Yeah.
I've lost my voice.
You've lost your voice. Okay, so I won't expect you to talk too much. Go ahead and put any comments you want to make into the chat. If you want to, I'll keep an eye on that. So everyone that is planning on, that I knew was planning on coming is here now. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we can get started. Okay, so there is the view that I'm looking for. Okay, so this is neuroplasticity for beginners. This is my capstone lesson, and I do appreciate everyone coming. Actually, hold on, I'm gonna unshare, and because I want to be able to see myself. Let's do that again. I went through this last time, and it was very interesting. Okay, there we go. I can kind of see myself. Okay. Okay, so thanks again, everyone, for coming. This is neuroplasticity for beginners. Let's just go to the next slide. Okay, so here's our agenda and outcomes for today. After the agenda, I'm going to introduce myself, and then we'll get into my history with neuroplasticity, and then we'll talk about what science today is saying about neuroplasticity. And then we will do a neuroplasticity activity for managing stress. And this is an activity for managing mild stress. If you've got bigger problems, we do recommend seeking appropriate help from the appropriate healthcare practitioners. And then we will do a summary, review, and question time. So first, our outcomes. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to define and describe a basic understanding of neuroplasticity, how it works, what structures are involved, and why it's so important. You will be able to understand the regulating technique well enough to use it and explain it to someone else. Not necessarily teach them how to do it, but explain how it works in a general way. Okay, introduction. So first, yes, I am on unceded Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish Nations peoples lands, and I do live in hope for a future where humanity lives with Indigenous wisdom at the forefront of how we operate, and I incorporate Indigenous wisdom into my teaching practice as much as I can. I am a massage therapist. I've been practicing for 17 years, and I've been studying neuroplasticity for about 10 years. Okay, so want to learn a new superpower? Want to have more control over your mind, body, living experience? Neuroplasticity is the key to making real changes in the nervous system. Your awareness is the key to neuroplasticity. So this is the definition that I've kind of put together based on my understanding. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to form new pathways and is fundamental for learning, adapting, and forming memories, and can be used to heal from a variety of complex injuries, syndromes, and symptoms. Okay, so I'd like to go around the group and see what everyone already knows about neuroplasticity. So if you want to type something into the chat, please go ahead. But otherwise, everyone, please go ahead and introduce yourself. If you feel up for that, you don't have to if you don't want to, and just what you know about neuroplasticity and what you're hoping to get from today's lesson. And if no one wants to share, that's okay too. I know some people are feeling a bit shy today. That's totally okay. We can, so I'll give another like 10 seconds. If anybody wants to raise their hand or just pop in, just let me know, okay?
I tried to put it in the chat, but it didn't work.
Oh no.
It might pop up in a moment. So I just said, hello everyone, I'm Vanessa. I don't actually know very much about this, so I'm looking forward to learning a bit of the basics and just understanding what it is and what it can do for people. So thanks for putting this on.
Awesome, thank you.
Hey ladies, I'm in on my phone here and I just got a call. So I popped out a bit and I'm just back in. So I think we're introducing ourselves. Is that
Yep.
right? Okay, well,
That's right.
I'm Lasagna, and I'm Larissa's cousin from Trinidad, and just glad to be here. Let's see what this is about and what I can learn. Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome. And hold on a second. That's not what I want to do. I'm just trying to see if I can see the chat as well. There we go. Do you guys still see my PowerPoint? Yeah, okay, cool.
Yep.
This is only the second time I've hosted anything with Teams. I'm accustomed to using Zoom, and so I'm still figuring out how to navigate with Teams. So SARB, as you're aware, I'm not an academic, though I self-read about the topic as my middle daughter was diagnosed with IDD. I think maybe you mean ADD, or is it IDD? ADD, and brain damage during utero. Okay, so you know a little bit about it from personal experiences. I can see that you're typing. I'll let you finish. Okay, intellectual disability. Okay, so yeah, you have some awareness of what's going on here. Okay, I'm going to go back. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and then share again, because that is the only way I know how to make it do what I want. Okay, there we go. Okay, so thank you for the introductions, everyone. I appreciate that. And again, I appreciate everyone being here today. Okay, so first, going into my history with neuroplasticity, these are a couple of authors that I've read. You can see Norman Doidge's book, The Brain's Way of Healing. I read that back in 2016, 2017. And you can see here, I took the first sentence from his website that describes him. There's a lot more to it. He's got a lot going on. So he's a psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, researcher, author, essayist, and poet. And we'll talk more about his book later on. And then I read Awareness Heals by Stephen Schafferman, The Feldenkrais Method for Dynamic Health. From that book, my biggest takeaway was the power of oscillation, and we'll get more into that in another slide as well. About Moshe Feldenkrais, we'll get into the Feldenkrais method and about Feldenkrais a little bit more in another slide, but I've just got this information here. You can see where he was born. He was born in 1904 and lived until the mid-80s. So we'll come back to these ones a little bit deeper in next slides. So my personal history with neuroplasticity in terms of sessions, I did group therapy with cognitive behavioral therapy quite a few years ago, back in 2013, I think. And I learned how to be aware of my thoughts and use mantras to kind of manage. So if I had a thought, if I was stressed out about being late, I would use a mantra like, I've got lots of time. I always managed my schedule with lots and lots of buffers so that even if I was late, nothing bad would happen. I would always end up being on time, but I was still anxious all of the time about being late. I would go sit for a bus 15 minutes before it was scheduled to be there and just be stressed out about whether or not I was going to catch the bus. And so using the I've got lots of time mantra really helped me to come back to being okay in the time, in the moment. And so that's what I would do. I would say whatever, like label the feeling that I was having, the thing that I was stressed out about, the idea, and then come up with a phrase that I would repeat that was kind of the opposite of that. And so cognitive behavioral therapy is there very much about noticing your thoughts and managing your thoughts so that it can become behavioral as well. And then at some point, I can't remember exactly the first time I learned this regulating technique that we'll learn later on. But I learned it a second time when I was studying integrated energy healing at Langara. And so we'll learn more about that regulating technique, but I use it all the time. I use it if I'm waiting in a lineup or waiting in a waiting room, again, stressed out about what I'm doing and where I'm supposed to be. And, you know, the mind can spin whenever you're unoccupied. And so I use this regulating technique to manage stress in moments. And then in 2017 or so, I did biofeedback, where this was administered by a counselor that I was seeing at the time. And what they do is they put diodes, sensors on your brain, on your scalp, and they feed that information, your brain waves, through a computer, and then that comes up as a visualizer. So you're looking at your own brain waves through a visualizer, and as the computer's reading your brain waves, it'll blip whenever your brain waves go outside a normal healthy range. And so that's how your brain is getting the feedback of like, this is good, this is healthy. Oh, you stepped out, and your brain becomes more aware of what it's doing. So that was a very interesting experience. It was very relaxing, very calming, and I did find it useful and helpful at the time. For the last year or so, I've been doing EMDR, again with a counselor psychiatrist. And with this one, you've got options between, it looks kind of like a squeegee until the light lights up. And so it'll be this string of lights that will go back and forth, and you follow it with your eye movement. Or I chose the buzzer option. You can hold buzzers that buzz back and forth between your two hands. So during the session, what happens is you decide, again, using the example of anxious about being on time. So you imagine, you'd focus and think about how you feel about that idea. And then you'd go through the buzzers, you do it for about 40 seconds, and then you debrief again. How does it feel now? Thinking in terms of like, how did you feel before? How does it feel now on a scale of like 1 to 10? And then you do that a few more times. And at the end of the sessions, I usually found that actually I would start at like a 7 and then it would go up to a 9 at the end of the session because I'd been thinking about it. I feel a little bit more stressed out at the end of the session, but then navigating life after the sessions, I found it easier. So the effect overall of using EMDR, I found I have less stress, I get triggered less easily, and I just generally feel more joy as my brain is rewiring to navigate around the pathways. And we'll get more into pathways later on as well. So those are some techniques that I've used personally that I understand to be neuroplastic and are founded in neuroplasticity that have worked really well for me. And this is just 4 out of many, many types of techniques that are out there that are non-invasive. Okay, so more back to Deutsch's book. This is a book that I have that I read back in 2016. You can see the list here of disorders, diseases, what have you, that Norman Deutsch actually went around the world and interviewed people with these different conditions and saw how they were using neuroplasticity to manage symptoms or fully recover. So someone who had Parkinson's or was diagnosed with Parkinson's and started using movement, progressive walking technique, where he would start out walking really slowly for 5 minutes a day and then progress to 10, 15, 20, and moving faster and faster slowly over time. And so was able to slow down the progression of the disease. People use neuroplasticity like I did for mental health issues, for chronic pain. One person interviewed for this book had autoimmune blindness, so was able to recover their sight after losing their sight through neuroplasticity. And then neurodivergence was also something that was discussed, people with autism, ADHD, and other learning differences. And so we mentioned this in terms of, I'm not saying we're trying to fix or eradicate autism or ADHD. Those are some of my favorite people. I know I'm on the neurodivergence spectrum as well, but it's more about using techniques to manage symptoms in a world that's not meant for you. The world is meant for neurotypicals. And so if you're like me, you're highly sensitive, the world is often too much. And so I use neuroplasticity techniques to manage my experience in the world. So other things like sound therapy, and we mentioned the neurofeedback. Movement is a big one. And yeah, so yeah, this book I found it really inspiring to see all of these different people all around the world using different techniques to manage very different experiences, but it all comes down to neuroplasticity. Okay, so more about Feldenkrais. So the big takeaways for me with Feldenkrais were movement, mindfulness, and oscillation. So you're being mindful while doing movement that oscillates. So you do a movement and then you do another movement. You oscillate between the 2 movements. Then you add a third movement and then you oscillate between like 1 and 3 and then 3 and 2. And so it creates this kind of trifecta of the mindfulness, the movement, and the movement between movements that creates this big pattern, this overall pattern. Reading this book gave me a sense of how, like, I have a pretty strong sense of pattern recognition. So I saw that pattern and was like, oh, okay, I see all the different puzzle pieces and I see how I can adapt that to what I need to make it special for myself. There is a guild here in North America where if you want to train in the Feldenkrais method, you can become a practitioner. And so there are massage therapists here in Vancouver and all over the province who are members of that guild, who are trained and certified. And so they'll incorporate the Feldenkrais method into their practices. And as you can see in the picture here, people will also take classes, group classes. So you can have it as a one-on-one or have it as a group. The amazing thing about Feldenkrais, so he was born in 1904 in Ukraine, walked to Palestine, and then ended up in Paris in 1940, narrowly escaped the Nazi invasion there, ended up in London studying math and physics. At some point in his time there, he re-injured an old knee injury. And the doctors were saying, okay, your knee is broken. We got to fix you. We're going to do a surgery. 50-50 chance it's going to work. And he said, absolutely not. I don't like those odds. And so he used his knowledge of jujitsu and he trained himself. He did research on ancient medicine or medicine that was available at the time. And he developed the Feldenkrais method and healed himself. And so that's where it became. So people will come to him and say, oh, you healed your knee injury. Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And that's where the guild and the whole method kind of came from. And again, I find it so inspiring that back then in the 40s and 50s, he had information available to him that led him to this method. So the idea of neuroplasticity, as much as it's an emerging science, it's been around for a long time also. I think we can lean on Eastern medicine as well. Like the neuroplasticity as an idea has been in the human consciousness for a very long time. Okay, so this is a cute little video of a synapse. Let me know if you can't see it. So this is a synapse forming a connection with another synapse. There it is. I could watch this all day. I find it so fascinating that we can put a camera so far into your brain you can see like a specific little cell. And so this is a synaptic neuroplasticity. We'll get more into that later, but it's like, yeah, it's physical. It's not just memories forming, it's physical changes happening in your body, in your brain. Okay, so what science today is saying about neuroplasticity? I'm just going to take a quick read. How's everybody doing so far? Give me a hands up or a thumbs up, or if you have any questions. I'm going to assume that everybody's doing okay. Feel free to interrupt me if you need to. Your thumbs up, thank you so much. Okay, so again, the definition of neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to rewire, reorganize, and form new pathways from both internal and external stimuli. So internal stimuli being, I interpret that as being your thoughts, external stimuli, like the EMDR, the buzzers, things like that. But also I think of it in terms of movement. I think of that, how you interact with your environment. I think of that as being external stimuli as well. So neuroplasticity happens when you're learning, forming new memories, and adapting. So anytime I'm driving to a new place and realize, oh, it'd be faster to go this way, or there's traffic here, there's construction here, I'm going to go this way. I'm adapting to my environment. That's how I think about neuroplasticity is happening there as well. So some words that I learned while doing research for this lesson: adaptive and maladaptive. So adaptive, I think of as being healing, growing, learning. Maladaptive, I think of as being in chronic pain. If my anxiety or depression is flaring up, I feel like that's a maladaptive pathway that's either forming or coming back to, or if there's addiction issues going on. So neuroplasticity can be used also for healthy aging and cognitive resilience. And I think that comes back to things like the Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, things like that. If you know, someone in your family, or you are worried that you might have or become symptoms with dementia, neuroplasticity is something to think about getting into now before you start experiencing symptoms. So there are 4 main processes for neuroplasticity: synaptic plasticity, like we saw in the video, structural plasticity, neurogenesis, and functional regeneration. Hold on a sec, Sarb had to. Welcome back, Sarb. You okay? Okay. And so all 4 of these processes work interdependently. They work together. It's not like one of them working in a vacuum. They're all working at the same time together. So another couple of terms that I learned for this lesson: long-term potentiation and long-term depression. So these are complementary oppositional mechanisms of synaptic plasticity. So potentiation has to do with using the pathway or building the pathways, new pathways that already exist. And depression is understanding a pathway and realizing you don't want to use that pathway and avoiding using that pathway. So they work together. Okay, so neuroplasticity and healing. So again, this list on the side here: Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, Parkinson's, stroke, brain injury, depression, anxiety. So this is just from this one research PDF that I looked at. These are disorders that were mentioned in this one only. So there are other disorders that you can use neuroplasticity for. These are just the ones that are mentioned here. So the important thing for me is that there are non-invasive ways. There are other invasive ways, but we're talking more about the non-invasive way. There's a whole list of them here. You can see that was mentioned again just in this one research paper. So CBT, EMDR, movement, biofeedback, and so many more. And so there's a whole list of things that you can do. There's a whole toolkit that's available for non-invasive therapies for managing these kinds of symptoms. So we're going to talk a little bit again about functional plasticity. So functional plasticity is shifting function from injured to non-injured parts of the brain, critical for motor skills, speech, and cognitive function. So we think in terms of pathways. So if you've got a plaque from Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that in your brain, part of the brain is cells have died, those pathways aren't working anymore. So you can build new pathways so you can regain those skills. And so structural plasticity has to do with physical changes in the brain, new dendritic branches, and synaptic connections. Okay. And so important to think in terms of the brain remains capable of change throughout adulthood. You can teach an old dog new tricks. I think it's really important to keep that in mind for yourself, for anyone. As we age, just because we've gotten older doesn't mean our brains don't work as good anymore. I think that's something we've been told, and it's just not true. The science isn't saying that. I also think it's important to think in terms of combining techniques. I know if I had unlimited resources, I do all of them all of the time, but I have to choose and pare it down to just one at a time. But I think combining techniques to see what the most impactful combination can be to get the best results for healing. Okay, so any questions at this time? Looks like everybody's doing okay. Okay, so we are going to practice next. So go ahead and get comfortable in your seat. Try to get your feet flat on the floor, and you can put your hands, if you're sitting at a desk, either hands on the desk or hands on your thighs. We're going to be doing some movement here. And just take a moment to ground and notice your breath, and try to get your breath as even and regular as possible, and probably slow it down a little bit depending on how you're doing. Okay. So we're going to be alternating between lifting your toes on one side and then lowering them, and then raising your toes on the other side and lowering them. And we're going to be coordinating with our breath and say, lifting on the left and breathing in, and then lowering and breathing out, and then switching sides, lifting on the right and breathing in, and lowering and breathing out. Okay. So we've got it written here. So this is your round one. So go ahead and start breathing in and lifting your toes on the left, and breathing out and lowering your toes on the left. And then switching sides, breathing in, raising your toes on the right, and breathing out, lowering your toes on the right. Then back to the left, breathing in, lifting your toes, and breathing out, lowering your toes on the left. And then switching sides, breathing in, raising your toes on the right, and lowering them on the right, breathing out. Okay, I'm gonna let you cycle through those on your own. If you need to just look at the screen, go ahead and do that. But I'm gonna stop talking and let you sort of feel how that feels and coordinate with your own breath and your movement on your own. I'm gonna give you about a minute. Okay. Anyone has anything to share now? You can go ahead. Okay, moving on to the next round. We're going to complicate it a little bit. And we're going to breathe in on one side, on the raise the toes and the heel of the opposite side. So lifting the toes and the right heel, lifting left toes and right heel at the same time, breathing in, and then lowering, breathing out, and then switching sides, lifting the right toes and the left heel, breathing in, and then lowering, breathing out. This one really challenges my dyslexia because left and right, and then in and out. Okay, so breathing in, left toes, right heel up. Breathing out, lowering. And then switching sides. Breathing in, right toes, left heel up. And breathing out and lowering. So you got kind of like a seesaw thing going on. Okay. So go ahead and try that on your own for about a minute. Okay. So thank you for participating in that. I'm going to, so I do want to hear back from you guys to let me know how that felt for you. Please put anything in the chat if you would like to. 1 second, I need to get back to. Oh, see. Okay. Okay, so yeah, if you have anything to share from that experience, now's the time. How did it make you feel? Do you feel same, better, worse, relaxed from beginning to end? And did you find it easy to coordinate? I know I find it hard sometimes, and anything else you might to share. So Sarb, you're saying, can't wait to have the daycare children participate in this activity. I love the idea of getting them started young. And I can see a couple more typings going on. Yeah, coordination takes a minute, but that's your neuroplasticity happening. That's your brain forming a new pathway, right? Just waiting to see what Vanessa had to share to type.
My chat's still not working.
Okay, sorry.
But that's okay. Good exercise. It was good to focus on the different parts of coordination and put it all together. So thanks.
No problem. And can you guys still see my PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to so review and question time. So neuroplasticity has been around for a long time, and it's still emerging science. There's still so much that we don't know about the brain and how the brain works. And so there's still a lot of research being done, which I think is great. It can be simple, complicated, active, passive, or customized to your individual needs, which I love for us, and can be used on a wide variety of disorders and injuries. And again, awareness is and knowledge is empowering. So I really hope that you take away that point and that you're a little bit curious and inspired to do some more research and see what's out there and see what might work for you. Here are my resources. And so yeah, I'll open up the floor if there's any more questions or comments that anyone has to share. Sarb is typing. For anyone watching this, I'm sorry for the quiet time, but that's a part of life. It's a part of, I think the teaching process is just that I'm still trying to learn, is just holding space for people to participate and being quiet. So Sarb has written, I think the intellectual movement and hold on, I think the movement that started roughly a couple hundred years ago may have slowed down the usage of the well-known aspects of Eastern knowledge. The scientific minds wanted us to slow down, I would assume. So sorry, I can't speak. No, I think that we're in a time now where science is catching up to Eastern medicine, and it's converging now. Like science and spirit are converging now. And I think it's a really important part of our evolution. And so, yeah, I think for a long time, our current social paradigm has kept us dumb and not wanted us to think too much about how things work and how empowering our minds are. But I think we're coming out of that now. Not in a nefarious way either, just more out of curiosity and fact-based information. Sure. Yeah, humanity has definitely been on a ride, especially like with how things are going right now. It's just, I question reality all of the time. So, and we know that reality is perspective based, and so we can create our reality, and again, like the power of your own mind, right? Okay, so if there isn't anything else that anyone wants to share or add, I'm gonna stop the recording. Before that, I'll just say thank you again, everyone, for coming. Thank you so much for participating, and yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording now.